Welcome to Greyhawk Manila, Greyhawk Digital Forensics and Cybersecurity, now fully APAC ready. This presentation introduces our comprehensive legal blueprint. The APAC Digital Forensics Legal Blueprint, Surviving the Admissibility Crisis in Regional Courts. Aligned strictly to GAP FPC standards and stripping away Western-centric theory, this manual delivers essential operational intelligence designed specifically for digital forensics practitioners operating across the Asia-Pacific region. Comprehensive contextual breakdown. 1. Organizational identity, Greyhawk Manila. Institutional context, presented by Greyhawk Manila, a premier digital forensics and cybersecurity firm operating out of the Philippines with a multi-jurisdictional mandate across the Asia-Pacific region. Operational readiness, the declaration that Greyhawk is now fully APAC ready, signifies an evolution past standard domestic casework. It reflects an operational capability designed to handle multi-jurisdictional cyber incidents, cross-border evidence transfers, and complex regulatory compliance across diverse legal systems. 2. The core premise, the admissibility crisis. The manual's purpose, titled The APAC Digital Forensics Legal Blueprint, Surviving the Admissibility Crisis in Regional Courts. This curriculum addresses a major systemic failure in regional jurisprudence. Bridging the knowledge gap, traditional forensic education often assumes a unified legal environment. In contrast, this blueprint serves as a tactical roadmap for examiners, incident responders, and legal practitioners who must navigate strict statutory nuances, such as mandatory system certifications or unique decryption laws, that vary drastically from one country to another. 3. Stripping away Western-centric theory. The flaw of global standards. Standard global certifications heavily prioritize Western frameworks like the United States Fourth Amendment, search and seizure protections, or the European Union's General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR. Regional reality. When these abstract, Western-centric theories are applied inside regional courts, such as navigating Singapore's criminal procedure codes or India's evidence mandates, they routinely fail. This slide sets the tone for the entire blueprint, substituting unverified assumptions with concrete, statutory, and court-tested operational intelligence built by APAC practitioners, for APAC practitioners. The admissibility crisis. On this visual breakdown, the shattered gavel and statistical impact. The presentation features a striking graphic of a shattered gavel alongside a critical regional benchmark. 68% of APAC practitioners report evidence ruled inadmissible due to unfamiliarity with local laws. 2024 APAC Cybercrime Survey. This visual metaphor immediately communicates the central vulnerability of modern digital forensics in the region. The breaking gavel represents the failure of the judicial process, illustrating that even when an intrusion is successfully detected and an attacker is identified, the entire judicial proceeding collapses if the foundational evidence is rejected by the court. Comprehensive core concepts breakdown. 1. The reality check, Western frameworks shatter in APAC courtrooms. Core legal reality. Digital forensic examiners frequently complete technical certifications rooted in Western legal principles, such as the United States Fourth Amendment search and seizure protections or generalized global collection rules. Operational impact. When these examiners apply generalized collection techniques inside Asia-Pacific courtrooms without adapting to sovereign legal frameworks, those methods fail. The local judiciary operates strictly under domestic statutory codes, rendering imported, generic procedures legally invalid. 2. Deconstructing the 68% inadmissibility statistic. Empirical evidence. According to the 2024 APAC Cybercrime Survey cited in the blueprint, nearly 7 out of 10 practitioners have experienced a scenario where their hard-earned forensic findings were thrown out of court. The root cause. This high rate of exclusion is rarely due to malicious intent or faulty technical tools. Rather, it stems directly from unfamiliarity with local statutory laws during the initial evidence collection phase. Missing a local procedural requirement, such as failing to secure a contemporaneous system certificate or mishandling regional notification rules, destroys the evidentiary value of the extraction. 3. The consequence, pre-trial case collapse. The judicial outcome. In regional courts, digital evidence is heavily scrutinized. If an opposing counsel successfully demonstrates that the evidence was collected in violation of local statutory frameworks, the court issues an order of inadmissibility. Operational takeaway. Without admissible data, prosecutors lack the foundation to move forward. Entire criminal prosecutions, corporate fraud cases, and ransomware investigations collapse before they ever reach a substantive verdict, allowing threat actors to walk free purely due to procedural and legal misalignment. The blind spots of global certifications. This visual breakdown, the comparative matrix and case file note. This presentation contrasts standard global forensic certifications against regional legal realities, featuring an embedded case file note detailing a real-world 2023 legal failure in Singapore. This visual layout highlights the dangerous gap between international training curricula and local courtroom requirements, proving that holding prestigious global credentials does not automatically grant legal compliance in the Asia-Pacific theater. Comprehensive core concepts breakdown. 1. The core flaw of global certifications, GIC, IASIS, and others. The Western bias, popular, globally recognized certifications, such as those from the Global Information Assurance Certification, GIC, or the International Association of Computer Investigative Specialists, IASIS, predominantly anchor their legal modules on Western frameworks. The curriculum blind spot. These programs heavily emphasize the United States Fourth Amendment, warrant requirements and search boundaries, and the European Union's General Data Protection Regulation, GDPR. While valuable globally, they completely omit sovereign statutes critical to the APAC region, such as Singapore's decryption laws, India's admissibility certificates, and ASEAN cross-border treaties. The paradigm shift. Our visual breakdown. The comparison table. The slide features a structured comparison table contrasting standard global generic training against the Greyhawk APAC reality. This side-by-side layout breaks down 4 operational domains: primary evidence law, evidence authentication, cross-border sharing, and encryption handling. The visual immediately communicates that transitioning from Western-centric theory to regional mastery requires a complete overhaul of an investigator's tactical and legal approach. Comprehensive narration and comparative breakdown. 1. Primary evidence law, generic assumptions versus country-specific statutes. Global generic training relies heavily on generalized frameworks, most notably the United States Fourth Amendment search and seizure standards or broad international human rights principles. Greyhawk APAC reality demands deep, working knowledge of sovereign, country-specific statutes. An investigator cannot apply a blanket legal assumption across borders. They must navigate distinct domestic penal codes, cybercrime laws, and evidence acts unique to each jurisdiction. 2. Evidence authentication, basic hashes versus strict jurisdictional affidavits. Global generic training assumes that generating a standard cryptographic hash, like MD5 or SHA-256, is universally sufficient to authenticate electronic data in any court. Greyhawk APAC reality requires rigorous, contemporaneous legal instruments alongside technical hashes. For example, in India, a technical hash alone is insufficient without a strict, signed Section 65B certificate executed by the system manager at the exact moment of collection. 3. Cross-border sharing, unilateral action versus mandatory ASEAN MLAT routing. Global generic training often teaches a frictionless or informal approach to cross-border agency collaboration, assuming investigators can directly request or share server logs and cloud data across international boundaries. Greyhawk APAC reality strictly prohibits unilateral data seizures. Cross-border investigations must adhere to formal ASEAN Mutual Legal Assistance Treaty (MLAT) protocols, routing all requests to designated central authorities accompanied by certified documents and official translations. 4. Encryption handling right to silence versus legal decryption compulsion. Global generic training assumes suspects retain an absolute, unmitigated right to silence and protection against self-incrimination, meaning investigators cannot legally force a suspect to unlock an encrypted device. Greyhawk APAC reality accommodates powerful local exceptions designed to combat modern cybercrime. Under laws like Singapore's Evidence Act Section 10, courts can legally compel suspects to provide passwords or decryption keys in criminal cases, treating noncompliance as direct contempt of court. The 4 universal pillars of admissibility. Visual breakdown, the Greek temple architecture. The slide utilizes the classic metaphor of a Greek temple structure to represent the solid legal foundation required for digital evidence. Just as a temple rests entirely upon its vertical columns, the structural viability of any digital case in an APAC courtroom rests on 4 distinct pillars. If even a single pillar cracks or collapses under cross-examination, the entire evidentiary argument gives way, leading to court inadmissibility. Comprehensive pillar breakdown. 1. Relevance. Core definition: evidence must maintain a direct, demonstrable nexus to the specific scope of the case at hand. Operational application: investigators must filter out extraneous data. Introducing massive volumes of unrelated hard drive contents or chat histories not only violates privacy regulations across the region, such as Regional Data Privacy Acts, but also gives opposing counsel an easy avenue to object based on immateriality. Every piece of extracted data must answer a specific investigative question tied to the charges. 2. Authenticity. Operational application: authenticity bridges the physical world and the digital artifact. In APAC courtrooms, matching cryptographic hash values, such as SHA-256, captured at the exact moment of seizure against subsequent analysis hashes proves the data originated from the target device. Furthermore, this pillar requires proper local affidavits and witness testimony to tie the digital artifact directly back to the physical source, such as a specific laptop recovered from a suspect's workstation. 3. Integrity. Core definition: the digital evidence must remain completely unaltered and pristine since the exact moment of initial collection. Operational application: integrity is strictly maintained through an unbroken, uncompromised chain of custody. Any unauthorized access, failure to use hardware write blockers during imaging, or missing handler transfer logs introduces reasonable doubt. In regional courts, if an investigator cannot prove that every single byte analyzed in the lab is an exact mirror of what existed in the field without accidental modification, the evidence is immediately thrown out. 4. Reliability. Core definition: the forensic tools, software versions, and methodologies utilized to recover and analyze the data must be forensically sound and globally or regionally recognized. Operational application. Practitioners cannot rely on ad hoc scripts or unvalidated custom tools. Courts expect strict alignment with established international and regional standards, specifically NIST SP 800-86, Guide to Integrating Forensic Techniques into Incident Response, and ISO/IEC 27037, Guidelines for Identification, Collection, Acquisition, and Preservation of Digital Evidence. Demonstrating that standard operating procedures were meticulously followed guarantees that the technical conclusions drawn will withstand aggressive peer review and judicial scrutiny. The APAC Jurisdictional Legal Matrix. Our visual breakdown: the technical matrix structure. The slide presents a structured technical matrix mapping out the fragmented legislative landscape of the Asia-Pacific region. Unlike Western regions that benefit from broader, harmonized frameworks, such as the European Union's GDPR, APAC is defined by distinct, highly sovereign statutory mandates. This matrix highlights that a standard operating procedure for evidence collection in one country can directly violate the laws of another, making a localized understanding of each jurisdiction an absolute operational requirement. Comprehensive of this matrix breakdown. 1. Singapore Evidence Act Section 10, Decryption Compulsion. Core legal principle. Singapore law grants courts unique statutory authority in criminal proceedings to legally compel suspects or holders of encrypted digital assets to provide decryption keys, passwords, or access codes. Operational impact. While Western jurisdictions often protect suspects via self-incrimination safeguards, such as the U.S. Fifth Amendment, Singapore's framework views withholding a decryption key under specific court orders as contempt. Investigators operating here must coordinate formal judicial mechanisms to compel passwords rather than attempting unauthorized brute force circumventions that could compromise evidence integrity. 2. India IT Act Section 65B, Rigorous Certification. Core legal principle. Under Section 65B of the Indian Information Technology Act, and related evidence provisions, any electronic record or computer-generated output is entirely inadmissible in court unless it is accompanied by a formal, signed certificate. Operational impact. This certificate must be executed by a person in charge of the computer or system management at the exact time of collection. Courts in India strictly reject retroactive or delayed certificates. For digital forensics practitioners, this means technical extraction and administrative documentation must happen concurrently. Missing this certification completely invalidates cloud dumps, mobile extractions, and server logs. 3. Australia Evidence Act 1995, Business Records and Plain Language Summaries. Core legal principle. Australia's federal framework accommodates routine business data alterations and system logs under specific business records exceptions, provided their reliability is maintained. It also emphasizes readability and judicial comprehension. Operational impact. Forensic reports and evidence presentations must incorporate clear, plain language summaries. Rather than overwhelming judges with dense hex dumps or raw code, practitioners must contextualize technical findings so that the trier of fact can easily understand how business-as-usual electronic records substantiate the investigation. 4. Japan APPI and Philippines Data Privacy Act, Strict Breach Notifications. Core legal principle. Data protection statutes, specifically Japan's Act on the Protection of Personal Information, APPI, and the Philippines Data Privacy Act, DPA, impose rigid administrative and incident reporting obligations. Operational impact. When an investigation involves a corporate data breach or unauthorized data exfiltration affecting a threshold number of data subjects, such as over 1,000 individuals in the Philippines, practitioners and organizations face strict compliance timelines, often a 72-hour mandatory notification window to national privacy commissions. Failing to report can result in heavy civil and criminal penalties independent of the underlying cybercrime case. 5. ASEAN MLAT, Cross-Border Harmonization Engine. Core legal principle. The Treaty on Mutual Legal Assistance in Criminal Matters, ASEAN MLAT, provides the official multilateral framework allowing all 10 ASEAN member states to cooperate on cross-border criminal investigations, searches, seizures, and digital evidence exchange. Operational impact. Investigators cannot unilaterally cross physical or virtual borders to seize remote cloud servers or data living in neighboring nations. Evidence sharing must proceed through formal central authority channels, complete with verified certificates of authenticity and official translations to ensure the transferred logs or disk images are accepted by the receiving country's judiciary. High-stakes statutory limits in Singapore and India. Our visual breakdown, the deep dive card structure. The slide employs a dual card layout comparing two distinct, high-stakes legal mechanisms in the region, Singapore Evidence Act Section 10 on one side and India IT Act Section 65B on the other. This visual grouping emphasizes that two of the region's major legal jurisdictions enforce strict, non-negotiable statutory rules regarding encryption access and electronic record certification that sharply contrasts with standard Western practices. Comprehensive deep dive breakdown. 1. Singapore Evidence Act Section 10, Decryption Compulsion and Boundaries. Core legal principle. Section 10 of the Singapore Evidence Act provides the statutory muscle required to tackle modern encrypted devices, allowing courts in criminal matters to legally compel suspects or individuals with possession of a device to hand over passwords, decryption keys, or access codes. Operational impact and limitations. Criminal versus civil scope. This power is strictly confined to criminal proceedings. It does not extend to civil litigation. Judicial order requirement. Examiners cannot arbitrarily demand passwords in the field. A formal court order must be secured. The penalty for noncompliance: if a suspect or target refuses to comply with a valid court order to decrypt a device, their refusal is treated as direct contempt of court. For digital investigators, this means encrypted containers or phones do not automatically remain locked walls, provided proper legal channels are pursued. 2. India IT Act Section 65B, the mandatory certificate requirement. Core legal principle. Under Section 65B of the Indian Information Technology Act, any electronic record, including server logs, cloud data, emails, and mobile extractions, is completely inadmissible as evidence in an Indian court of law unless accompanied by a legally compliant signed certificate. Operational impact and critical rules. Who signs it? The certificate must be executed by a person in charge of the computer or system management at the time of data extraction. Timing is everything. The certificate must be obtained at the exact time of collection. Indian courts categorically reject retroactive or delayed certificates produced months later during trial preparation. Evidentiary consequence. For forensic practitioners in India, completing the technical acquisition without securing this contemporaneous certificate renders the entire digital footprint legally worthless, resulting in automatic case dismissal. Navigating the ASEAN MLAT cross-border engine. Our visual breakdown, the three-step flowchart structure. The slide utilizes a three-step sequential flowchart that outlines the strict bureaucratic and legal path required for cross-border digital investigations within the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, ASEAN. Coupled with a real-world success case study from 2023 involving Malaysia and Indonesia, the visual emphasizes that digital evidence cannot simply be emailed or downloaded across international borders without breaking jurisdictional laws. Every single step must be executed in precise order to ensure cross-border admissibility. Comprehensive flowchart breakdown. Step 1. Central Authority Routing. Core legal principle. Investigators are legally barred from unilaterally crossing physical borders or executing remote extractions on servers hosted in foreign territories. All requests must go through diplomatic and legal channels. Operational application. Formal assistance requests must be routed directly through designated central authorities. For example, agencies must submit their paperwork through bodies such as the Singapore Attorney General's Chambers, AGC, or corresponding national ministries of justice. Attempting to bypass this channel results in unlawful extraterritorial data seizure and immediate evidence rejection. Step 2. Certificate of Authenticity. Core legal principle. Foreign courts will not inherently trust digital evidence harvested by an outside nation's law enforcement or private examiners unless its legitimacy is formally certified. Operational application. Practitioners must attach a rigorous certificate of authenticity. This legal document explicitly proves that the digital evidence, such as hard drive images, memory dumps, or network PCAP files, was acquired in full compliance with the originating country's statutory laws, utilizing write blockers and matching cryptographic SHA-256 hashes to guarantee it remains completely untampered. Step 3. Official translation. Core legal principle. Language barriers can introduce ambiguity or legal invalidity into court proceedings. Every piece of technical evidence, log file, and legal affidavit must be natively understood by the receiving court. Operational application. All system logs, forensic reports, and legal attachments must undergo official, certified translation into the official language of the receiving jurisdiction. Unofficial or automated software translations are systematically rejected by regional magistrates. Real-world application. The 2023 Malaysia-Indonesia success case. To demonstrate that this framework yields tangible results when followed correctly, the slide highlights a 2023 cross-border collaboration between Malaysia and Indonesia. By strictly following the three-step ASEAN ML80 engine, routing through central authorities, providing verifiable certificates of authenticity, and supplying official translations, law enforcement agencies successfully shared critical server logs. This frictionless cooperation allowed investigators to track cross-border threat actors and successfully secure 3 major ransomware convictions without running into jurisdictional deadlock. The unbroken chain of custody. Visual breakdown, the broken chain graphic and ACPO principles. The slide features a striking broken chain graphic paired with a critical regional statistic. 42% of digital evidence is ruled completely inadmissible in APAC courts due to a broken chain of custody. This visual underscores that technical proficiency during a forensic extraction is completely useless if the administrative tracking of the physical and digital evidence fails. To prevent this, the slide anchors evidence management to the internationally recognized Association of Chief Police Officers, ACPO, principles. Comprehensive core principles breakdown. 1. The high stakes of the 42% inadmissibility statistic. Core legal reality. A massive percentage of digital cases fail long before they reach a verdict, not because the data was clean or the suspect innocent, but because the evidence handling process was flawed. Operational impact. If defense counsel can prove even a small window of unmonitored access, an unexplained modification timestamp, or an undocumented handler transfer, the court treats the evidence as compromised. The entire digital narrative collapses under reasonable doubt. 2. ACPO Principle 1. No action executed should ever alter original evidence. Core rule. Practitioners must never perform live analysis or data collection directly on original storage media if it risks altering the state of the data. Operational application. Investigators must deploy hardware write blockers and create bit-for-bit forensic image copies. Analysis must always be conducted on working duplicates, ensuring the original physical exhibit remains in an uncompromised, pristine state. 3. ACPO Principle 2. All handlers must be fully competent to testify in court. Core rule. Every individual who touches, transports, logs, or stores the digital evidence must possess verifiable technical competence. Operational application. Chain of custody documentation is scrutinized during cross-examination. If an unverified clerk, security guard, or untrained officer handles an unsecured hard drive without knowing proper forensic protocols, their actions invalidate that segment of the custody chain. 4. ACPO Principle 3. A complete, uncompromised audit trail must be preserved. Core rule. Every single movement, transfer, analysis session, and storage change of the evidence must be recorded with exact timestamps, signatures, and purpose. Operational application. An audit log must leave 0 gaps. From the moment a laptop is seized at a crime scene to the moment it is logged into an evidence locker, every transfer requires dual-party sign-off. 5. ACPO Principle 4. The lead investigator holds ultimate personal responsibility. Core rule. Delegation does not equal abdication of accountability. Operational application. While junior analysts or field technicians may perform physical seizures, the lead investigator retains ultimate personal responsibility for the entire evidence lifecycle. If a breakdown occurs anywhere in the chain, the lead investigator answers directly to the regional magistrate. The chain of custody field lifecycle. Visual breakdown, the 3-phase workflow grid structure. The slide utilizes a 3-phase workflow grid that structures the forensic life cycle into sequential operational blocks: pre-collection, collection, and post-collection. This visual layout stresses that digital forensics is an active, methodical process beginning long before a hard drive is ever unplugged and extending well after physical evidence is secured in an evidence locker. From an operational standpoint, This three-phase workflow grid represents the baseline standard required to protect our findings from aggressive defense challenges in regional courts. In the Asia-Pacific theater, where procedural technicalities frequently dictate case outcomes, skipping even a single substep in this life cycle introduces fatal vulnerabilities. Comprehensive narration and phase-by-phase breakdown. Phase 1, Pre-collection. Core objective: capture ephemeral, volatile data and document the immediate environment before physical handling alters the scene. Operational tasks: documenting the live state of the system. Taking comprehensive photographs of the physical setup, screen contents, and peripheral connections. Recording the exact power status, whether the device was plugged in or running on battery. Noting all open applications, active user sessions, and visible command prompts on the screen. Operational assessment. Junior investigators frequently make the critical mistake of immediately pulling power or shutting down active terminals. This phase correctly prioritizes ephemeral data and environmental context. Investigator note: in modern corporate environments utilizing full disk encryption, such as BitLocker or FileVault, pulling power prematurely destroys volatile encryption keys residing in RAM. Field teams must evaluate whether a live memory capture is required before executing a shutdown. Phase 2, Collection. Core objective: secure the physical and digital medium without contaminating or modifying the underlying data. Operational tasks: disconnecting network cables, Wi-Fi, and cellular connections immediately to prevent remote wipes, remote locks, or anti-forensic kill switches. Enabling strict hardware write blockers before connecting storage media to acquisition workstations. Creating forensically sound, bit-for-bit forensic images. Recording unique cryptographic hash values of both the original media and the resulting forensic images to verify absolute parity. Operational assessment: network isolation and hardware write blocking are non-negotiable. Allowing an unsecured device to remain connected to a local Wi-Fi network invites remote retaliation, automated scripting wipes, or cloud sync alterations that instantly shatter evidence integrity. Investigator note: generating and documenting cryptographic hash values, SHA-256, at the exact point of acquisition is our primary defense against claims of post-seizure data tampering. If the acquisition hash does not match the verification hash, the image is legally worthless. Phase 3, Post-collection. Core objective: secure, document, and preserve the physical exhibits and documentation for long-term legal scrutiny. Operational tasks: sealing original hardware securely inside tamper-evident bags. Logging every single handler transfer with mandatory signatures and timestamps. Storing physical and digital items in strict, access-controlled environments. Preserving all audit logs, field notes, and documentation for a minimum of 2 years to withstand cross-examination during trial. Operational assessment: the mandate to seal exhibits in tamper-evident bags, maintain dual-party transfer logs, and retain documentation for a minimum of 2 years directly addresses regional audit scrutiny. Investigator note: the weakest link in digital forensics is rarely the software tool used, it is human error during transport and storage. Every signature, timestamp, and transfer must be treated as if it will be blown up on a courtroom projector during cross-examination. Cryptographic integrity and the anatomy of exclusion. Our visual breakdown, the funnel graphic and error impact avoidance table. The slide features 2 core visual components: a funnel graphic demonstrating how raw digital data is processed through a cryptographic algorithm to generate a unique SHA-256 hash value, and an error impact avoidance table that categorizes common forensic mistakes and their legal consequences. This visual pairing illustrates that cryptographic mathematics alone cannot save an investigation if procedural errors compromise the integrity of the evidence. Comprehensive core concepts breakdown. 1. Cryptographic integrity and the power of hashing. Core technical principle: cryptographic hashing acts as the digital fingerprint of an electronic file or entire forensic image. Operational application. practitioners process evidence through validated tools like FTK Imager to generate unique hash strings. While SHA-256 is the preferred standard across APAC, legacy SHA-1 is still accepted. The fundamental mathematical property of these functions is the avalanche effect. A single 1-bit alteration anywhere in the file, even changing a single character or metadata timestamp, completely changes the resulting hash string. This mathematical certainty provides absolute proof of data parity between the field acquisition and the lab analysis. 2. The anatomy of exclusion, common errors and legal impacts. Error 1. Leaving time gaps in chain of custody logs. Impact. Introduces reasonable doubt of tampering during transport or storage, leading to immediate evidence exclusion by the court. Avoidance. Strictly document every transfer location, handler signature, and precise timestamp. Error 2. Analyzing original evidence directly. Impact. Alters metadata and file system structures, directly violating ACPO principles and breaking the chain of custody. Avoidance. Always create bit-for-bit forensic images and conduct all analytical work exclusively on working duplicates. Error 3. Ignoring live device states. Impact. Prevents the court from confirming pre-seizure environmental conditions, volatile artifacts, or active user sessions. Avoidance. Always photograph screens, record power status, and document the physical environment before touching hardware. 3. Summary best practices for admissibility. Always document every location meticulously. Always enforce hardware write blockers during data collection. Always photograph screens before touching any hardware components. Navigating the APAC ethical and reporting minefield. Our visual breakdown, the radar chart and call-out box. The slide utilizes a radar chart to visualize the intersection of three major professional frameworks: ISO/IEC 27037, ACPO principles, and ISC, Superscript 2 codes of ethics. This visual illustrates that a forensic investigator's ethical compass must balance multiple, sometimes competing, international standards. Positioned prominently next to the chart is a call-out box detailing mandatory reporting overrides, visually interrupting the standard ethical frameworks to emphasize that regional legal statutes forcefully supersede private agreements. Comprehensive narration and framework breakdown. 1. The ethical radar, balancing professional standards. ISO/IEC 27037, integrity and impartiality. This standard mandates that investigators must remain completely objective and unbiased, ensuring the technical integrity of the digital evidence is never compromised by personal or client interests. ACPO principles, prohibiting alteration as covered in previous phases. These principles strictly dictate that no action taken by law enforcement or private examiners should alter the original data residing on a device. ISC, Superscript 2 Code of Ethics, the common good. This framework requires cybersecurity and digital forensic professionals to act honorably, responsibly, and legally, always prioritizing public safety and the common good over individual client demands. 2. The legal reality, mandatory reporting overrides. The override principle, a critical operational hazard for private forensic practitioners in the APAC region, is the misconception that non-disclosure agreements, NDAs, or client confidentiality offer absolute protection. They do not. Legal supremacy, statutory obligations in APAC legally override client confidentiality. If an investigator uncovers specific types of illicit material or imminent threats during a corporate or private engagement, they are legally compelled to bypass their client and report directly to regional authorities. 3. Specific mandatory triggers. Child sexual abuse material, CSAM. The discovery of CSAM triggers an immediate, universal mandatory reporting requirement across all APAC jurisdictions. Erasing or ignoring this data to protect a client constitutes a severe criminal offense. State-sponsored cyberattacks. Certain sovereign jurisdictions mandate the reporting of advanced persistent threats, APTs, or state-sponsored espionage. A prime example is South Korea's National Security Act, which requires practitioners to report breaches that threaten national infrastructure or security. Active threats of violence or terrorism. If an investigator uncovers credible, active plots involving physical violence, terrorism, or loss of life, ethical codes and regional laws mandate immediate disclosure to law enforcement to preserve public safety. The on-the-job ethical triage sequence. Our visual breakdown, the decision tree flowchart, and case warning. The slide utilizes a decision tree flowchart structured around 3 critical diamond nodes: evaluating evidence alteration, local statutory compliance, and the common good, paired with an explicit 2022 Indian case warning call-out box. This visual design transitions abstract ethical codes into an actionable, real-time tactical framework, proving that field decisions carry immediate legal and criminal consequences for practitioners. Comprehensive narration and decision tree breakdown. 1. The operational necessity of ethical triage. The field dilemma. Digital forensics and cybersecurity practitioners frequently face intense pressure from corporate clients, internal stakeholders, or opposing parties to clean up, suppress, or modify digital findings to protect organizational reputations. The triage purpose. When caught in these high-pressure gray areas, investigators cannot rely on gut feeling. They must execute a rapid, structured triage sequence to evaluate whether a requested action crosses the line from professional service into criminal misconduct. 2. The 3 decision nodes of the triage sequence. Node 1. Does the action alter or destroy original evidence? The rule: if the proposed instruction, whether direct manual editing, running unvalidated cleaning scripts, or deleting specific log entries, tampers with original forensic data, refuse immediately. This violates core ACPO principles and foundational court integrity rules. Node 2. Does the action violate local statutory law or forensic codes of conduct? The rule: if the client or employer demands an action that breaches regional laws, such as unlawful wiretapping, unauthorized data exfiltration, or circumventing privacy acts, refuse and report if mandatory. Compliance with local penal codes always supersedes client directives. Node 3. Does the action serve the common good rather than private client gain? The rule: if the operational choice pits a private client's commercial confidentiality against public safety, systemic security, or legal mandates, the investigator must prioritize the common good and statutory compliance. 3. Real-world case warning. The 2022 Indian misdemeanor prosecution. The incident. In a 2022 corporate investigation in India, a private digital forensic examiner yielded to client pressure and deleted specific digital evidence files from a compromised server to hide internal negligence. The consequence: the concealment was uncovered during judicial review. The private examiner was not merely dropped by the client. They were indicted and charged with a criminal misdemeanor for obstruction of justice and evidence destruction. The core takeaway: non-disclosure agreements, NDAs, and private service contracts never protect an examiner from criminal liability. When in doubt, practitioners must always prioritize statutory compliance, professional integrity, and public safety above private commercial interests. Qualifying as an expert witness in APAC courtrooms. Visual breakdown: the balance scales graphic. The slide utilizes a balance scales graphic to represent the equilibrium required during courtroom testimony, anchored by 3 core rules: specialized knowledge over badges, objective fact over advocacy, and accessibility over jargon. This visual counters the common misconception that an impressive resume or expensive international credentials alone guarantee judicial acceptance in the Asia-Pacific region. Comprehensive narration and rule breakdown. Rule 1. Specialized knowledge over badges. Core principle: APAC judges evaluate an expert's competence based on verifiable, hands-on skill, peer-reviewed experience, and relevant regional case history rather than collecting Shiny global certifications. Operational impact. While global certs provide baseline technical training, opposing counsel can easily dismantle an expert on the stand if they possess zero practical familiarity with local statutes or regional network environments. Demonstrable technical mastery and direct casework in the region carry far more weight in judicial cross-examination. Rule 2. Objective fact over advocacy. Core principle: forensic experts are officers of the court, not hired guns for the prosecution or the defense. Operational impact: the moment an investigator attempts to skew technical findings to favor the client who is paying their invoice, they cross the ethical line into advocacy. Objective testimony means reporting exactly what the data reveals, whether it helps or hurts the retaining party, backed strictly by verifiable methodologies. Rule 3. Accessibility over jargon. Core principle: judges and magistrates are legal scholars, not necessarily cybersecurity engineers. Speaking in raw hexadecimal strings or overly dense technical acronyms alienates the trier of fact. Operational impact: experts must be able to translate complex forensic concepts, such as carving deleted files, low-level disk structures, or cryptographic hash collisions, into clear, everyday analogies that a judge can easily comprehend without sacrificing scientific accuracy. The anatomy of an admissible forensic report and GAP FPC certification. Our visual breakdown, the 3-section template and certification shield. The slide features a structured layout mapping out a 3-section forensic report template alongside the official GAP FPC certification shield and a breakdown of its training modules. This visual bridges the gap between field collection and final court presentation, establishing a standardized reporting framework built specifically for the region. Comprehensive narration and report structure breakdown. Section 1, the plain language summary, page 1. Operational requirement: must be placed prominently on the very first page of the report. While mandatory under Australian legal frameworks, it is strongly recommended region-wide to give judges an immediate, high-level overview of the incident, scope, and conclusions before diving into deep technical appendixes. Section 2, technical methodology and tool transparency. Operational requirement: details the exact forensic tools and software versions utilized, such as Autopsy, InCase, or FDK Imager, hardware write blocker models used during acquisition, and side-by-side comparative tables of pre- and post-collection cryptographic hash values to prove data integrity. Section 3, examiner qualifications and statutory compliance. Operational requirement: outlines the examiner's credentials, professional background, and practical experience to establish judicial credibility. Furthermore, when operating in specific jurisdictions like India, practitioners must attach the signed Section 65B physical certificate directly to the report annex, or the entire document becomes legally inadmissible. The GAP FPC certification pathway. Beyond the field manual. This introductory blueprint serves only as the foundational baseline. To achieve complete operational readiness, practitioners are encouraged to enroll in the full GAP FPC certification bundle, which covers advanced legal principles, endpoint forensics, network analysis, and immersive reporting labs designed strictly by APAC practitioners, for APAC practitioners. The GAP FPC certification and the APAC advantage. Visual breakdown. The GAP FPC certification shield and module structure. The final slide features the prominent GAP FPC certification shield alongside a comprehensive breakdown of the 4 core training modules, a comparative advantage list, and a final call to action enrollment banner. This layout establishes that mastering regional digital forensics requires a complete educational ecosystem built from the ground up for the Asia-Pacific theater. Comprehensive module breakdown 1. The 4-module curriculum breakdown. Module 1, Legal and Ethical Principles, formed by this foundational blueprint, covering sovereign laws, cross-border treaties, and ethical triage. Module 2, Endpoint, Memory and Storage, Advanced acquisition techniques for modern workstations, volatile RAM capture, and storage media analysis. Module 3. Network, Mobile and IoT. Specialized methodologies tailored for regional hardware anomalies, mobile devices, and complex network infrastructures. Module 4. Case Management and Reporting. Rigorous documentation standards, report structuring, and expert witness courtroom preparation. 2. The APAC Advantage. Why regional specialization matters. Practitioner-built content, developed directly by experienced professionals operating across key regional hubs including Singapore, Mumbai, Sydney, and Jakarta, entirely stripping away irrelevant Western or European administrative fluff. Localized tooling focuses heavily on real-world regional technical hurdles, such as specialized forensic data extractions for popular regional mobile hardware, e.g., Xiaomi and Oppo devices, and handling cloud artifacts from dominant regional infrastructure providers like Alibaba Cloud. Exclusive network access grants graduates direct entry into a 500-plus member APAC alumni network complete with a private job board for regional professionals. 3. Final strategic takeaway. Beyond the field manual, this introductory blueprint serves strictly as the baseline foundation. Securing admissibility. To completely eliminate the risk of case-destroying technical and legal blind spots, practitioners are urged to enroll in the full GAP FPC certification bundle, unlocking over 20 hands-on regional labs built exclusively by APAC practitioners, for APAC practitioners.